sorry. Uh, yes. My name is Joseph Torres. I am going to be doing a financial analyst report, and it'll be mainly on the basis of Japan. It is a Eastern country right next to China, and yes, I will be giving evaluations and basically the whole gist of the economy from that country. So internationally, the global economy is suffering from high inflation rates and ongoing conflict with the East. The United States and other nations have been suffering from lack of gas prices, and Eastern nations withholding oils. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but because it's common knowledge of what the pandemic has done and how that's affected the market. So I'm just going to go on to the national. But Japan is a socialist country. Government relies heavily on cooperation, means the productions are not private most of the time. They are a highly developed social market economy, as well as they're with their third last nominal GDP back in 2021. Their huge competitions are USA and China with their assets and wealth, and I would like to add that they have well-educated industrious workers. Their main sectors are agriculture, manufacturing, fishing, and tourism. I like to start off with agriculture. Japan's main source of agriculture are rice, sugarcane, and persimmon. I can never say that word, but it is. They are a very huge exporter of rice, and I'll get more into detail with that later. Manufacturing their automobiles, consumer electronics, and computers. Next is fishing, produce a large production of fish with farming and sea selling. Four is tourism, with very popular traveling destinations such as Kyoto, Tokyo, and Osaka. So, Japan's political nature. Japan is currently a constitutional monarchy. The emperor occasionally deals with diplomatic situations. Sometimes the country is under socialism, which means the government has some control over all the nation's businesses. And here, I would like to give a brief overview of the economy going down from GDP per capita, and then we go into the federal budget with revenues, expenditures, and then the federal debt for the nation itself. Not as high as the U.S., but still pretty big numbers. And then we can see the calculated percentage of the GDP. So this is Japan's capital market analysis. So this is basically like all the stock market volumes, the volume for the bond markets, and it's all just compressed right here. This is in yen, which in most of my presentation, it's going to be within the dollar sign. I know a dollar is worth 100 yen, and so I would translate that later. Agriculture and fishing. As we can see right here, agriculture and fishing, they have been took a dip back where it says number 4, and starting at the beginning is 2017 all the way down to 2021. They are a huge fishing market, as well as a rice market with 4.2 million tons of fish in 2018 alone, and 9.2 million tons on average per year. This creates $202,430 jobs for the people. And I found a fun fact and statistic. Even though the agriculture takes up 20% of Japan's lands, it only accounts for 1% of Japan's GDP. Their competition is countries from nearby who also go into the rice business, and I don't see this business evolving or going anywhere within the next decades, because there's only so far you can go with food. And then right here we're at computer electronics products. So we not all of us may know, but Japan is one of the highest producers of electronics, with companies such as Sony and Nintendo, and other vehicles. I'll get more into that. And their biggest competitors for Japan markets are like Microsoft and Apple, which are mainly American. No, Apple is an American company. I believe Microsoft may be somewhere else, but yeah. But I believe Sony has a bright future, especially with their successes in electronics and computers and everything else. Another one is motor vehicles and parts dealers. Japan has a broad and wide variety of vehicles, such as Toyota, Nissan, Mitsubishi, and it's quite a big deal. As you can see, I have Toyota. Toyota is one of the biggest brands and a very well known brand around the world. So the competition really revolves around each other in terms of Honda, Mitsubishi, and BMWs, with Germany owning BMW. But it really stems off with every other car business, so to say. And, I expect the car business to boom up in the future because technology is innovating. Then we have electrical equipment and appliances and components. We know that from personal experience and from seeing how Japan is still a developing country, which means they haven't developed quite yet, unlike the US, but they do have a lot of computer electronic businesses such as Sony, Nikon, quite a bit of them. And so their biggest competitors are, each other, who all work on cameras, and So my guess is the company seems to be very stuck in terms of growth rate. Overall GDP seems to be rising, but there are other better competitors such as Sony whose stock prices are even better. Machinery, yes, the market for this is not very high, but it does produce something for the GDP. So furniture is that the company I'm discussing is Nitori. They've been developed since 1967 and currently has 400 stores in Japan, and they are kind of known as the IKEA of Japan. And so Nitori has been growing exponentially. And so with this growth, IKEA has taken notice, and they are their competitors right now in terms of the Asian countries. Another industry is the apparel and leather industry. I do not see this one going far, especially with many manufacturers finding a way around not killing cows and using artificial leathering. And so, as you can see, the industry growth rate has been zero for quite a bit of time, and I don't see it rising anytime soon. The food and beverage and tobacco products. Some of us may know how huge the food market is in Japan. It has a very beautiful and diverse culture. And yes, foreigners visit and experience new cultures and foods native to the land of Japan, and foods such as ramen, sashimi, as well as the famous and fresh seafood market. With beverages being popular with drinks such as sake, it is a diverse culture and economic food industry. But the locals seem to struggle with the stagnant growth of revenue, with economic and demographic being unfavorable. So competition would be other Asian countries. When it comes to food, it's in the specific area and doesn't really diverse. It does diverse with people going out and living into other places, but yeah, I don't see it growing as much. Next is the chemical products. Japan has a significant growth in chemical products, and there is Mitsubishi Chemical Holdings, which I will go more into detail in Mitsubishi. But yeah, Toray Industries is Mitsubishi's top competitors. They own $19.7 billion in assets and do very similar work compared to them. Mitsubishi in terms of pharmaceuticals and chemical textiles, and so their main competition. The industry development prospects and longer term outlook. I believe the future of Japan's Mitsubishi Chemical Company seems very promising. They are currently growing more within the United States and even invested a 10 million euro deal with Germany. And then I would like to go into petroleum and coal products, which, when doing the research for petroleum, Japan is the 5th largest crude oil of the world back in 2019. Japan is also known as the world's largest importer of liquid natural gases and the 3rd largest importer of coal. During recent times, Japan's population seems to be in decline, which makes energy efficiency lower. Their main competitors may be Saudi Arabia and the United States, and high consumers and producers of petroleum and coal products. This market has unfortunately been in a decline because of the population and implementations of electrical vehicles, which we seem to be going into the new age of renewable resources instead of non-renewable resources. So a little bit of progressive step there. And so this is the last industry I would like to speak about until I finally get into the 12 Japanese companies that I have gone and done research for. Yes, next I would like to go into analysis for the 12 Japanese companies. Japan's Post Holding business strategy. Japan's is a business is Japan's mail delivery as well as post office services, and their main activities they handle all the mail and mainly by the government of Japan, making a profit of 4.2 billion on average. So Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group business strategy. A company in its business being one of the largest financial institutions in the world, located in Japan with over $2.2 trillion in assets, and being in both the New York Stock Exchange and Tokyo Stock Exchange. So their main activity, this company helps by putting professionals with checking day-to-day operations and checking and trying to mitigate to achieve financial success. In other words, payment process and cash payments and management. Honda company in its business. Honda Motors is a vehicle company that produces a multitude of motorized vehicles and are well known for their durability over time. This company was made back in the early 1980s and continue to improve and increase billions of dollars worth of revenue. Their main activity in recent years has been the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world. Their achievement has been greatly improvement within the business, increasing their revenue by $121 billion. Their main activity is recent years have been motorcycle manufacturing. And then I would like to go into Sony. Sony is an electrical industry focused on gaming, entertainment, and music, very often creating TVs, movies, and even video game systems that are widely successful and a global leader in consumer electronics. Their main activity has probably ever been known as for creation of the PlayStation. It's been made back in 1995. They are also well known for making phones, TVs, and a very wide source. But the PlayStation 5 has recently been the most successful story back in 2020 with even selling out, and it's still very difficult to acquire PS5 even now in 2023. Toyota Motors, their business strategy. Its company in business, Toyota is the second largest car manufacturers in the world. It is Japan's largest company to date, making $14.3 billion in profit and has 561.9 in assets. This company is well known for their cars, vans, and trucks and how reliable they can be, created back in 1937. Their main activity is that they are car manufacturers as well as a financial services and business. Nissan is another car company. Nissan is a global manufacturing company for vehicles under the same brands as Infiniti and Datsun brands. They are a Japanese company that are known for their very affordable prices for vehicles and a very reliable brand. Their main activity is car manufacturing as well as for vans and trucks. Kawasaki Heavy Industries business strategy. Kawasaki Heavy Industry is a motorcycle industry that manufactures engines, heavy equipment, aerospace, and defense equipment, but their main activity is motorcycles. Nippon Steel Business is a steel manufacturing company made back in the 1970s in 2019, but is currently the third largest steel producers. Still producing in terms of high quality stainless steel, sheets, bars, and wire rods. And now I will go over the 6 best companies within Japan and go into more and greater detail for them. Mitsubishi's life cycle, and the company has been created back in the 1870s and has been in steady incline and stay positive throughout the years. Their competition, the people who have been high positions and staying in, the people who have been in the company have been staying there for a while and are staying in. Basically, they see, who's been there with them, who's been there like the longest, and those are the people who are, with them. Honda Motors, their life cycle analyst, Honda Motors is a mature business already as big as it is, it can be, and the top of the line vehicles with reliability, but their competition up in is the same as what I said before with Mitsubishi. It's really a long-term business. Nissan, the business has matured and seems to be in a steady incline. The positions are very competitive again, and they need to show initiative to earn positions in situations that happened with the last CEO, which the last CEO for Nissan, they have been, he escaped to Japan because of some criminal activity that he was going through. Sony, it's a mature business, clear and direct goals, highly competitive with the success of the company. And then a matured and developed business for Nintendo, difficult to get in the company, even the positions are in high demand. And then I will be going into the valuations and their money. So as we can see on the operating, the money has been increasing over the years for Mitsubishi, which means that they've been increasing greatly. Then we go into Honda. Honda has been increasing as well. It's a very good pick for investors and are greatly recovering from the 2020 pandemic. Then we have this, I believe this one is Nissan. This one's Nissan. They are, great and reliable stocks there for future earnings, but their numbers are extremely volatile, as we can see. Sony has been greatly improving over the years, and it's a very reliable company to be invested in, and I can see them going for very far into the distance. Toyota, they have been in a decline, as we can see with their numbers. They haven't been doing well. Nintendo has been greatly improving, but due with the recession and the pandemic, we can see a decline in it. But so it's not a safe investment. But yeah, this is Mitsubishi's company valuations in millions of yen. Honda company right here, valuations in millions. Nissan right here. You can see a shift. Sony, Toyota, and Nintendo. So this is our current ratios for Mitsubishi, and operating is negative 8.33% with a debt/equity ratio of 0.68. And continuing that, when I say continued, we're continuing from the business that we were just talking about. We can see a net profit margin of 5.78% and a return on equity of 7.39%. Then we go to Honda. Honda is their current ratio at 121, and the operating margin is 5.52%, and their debt to equity ratio is to 0.53. Their net profit is 4.4%, and the return on equity is 8.52%. Uh, Sony is their current ratio is 0.83 and their operating margin is 9.47%, and their debt to equity ratio is 0.22. Their net profit margin is to 5.74%, and their return on equity is 2.38%. Their current ratio for Nissan is 1.63, operating 5.05%. Debt to equity ratio is 0.89. The net profit margin for them is 6.91%, and return on equity is 13.48%. Toyota current ratio is 1.03, operating 7.54%, and their debt to equity ratio is 0.53. The net profit margin is 8.25%, and ROE for Nintendo is 12.43%. Oh, sorry, Toyota, that's what I meant to say. Current ratio for Nintendo is 7.61, operating equipment is at 27.79, currently the highest from these six businesses. Their debt to equity ratio is 3.21%, and there are net profit margin of negative 3.25, and return on equity of negative 1.12, the lowest that we've seen so far. For Honda, they're a very good pick for investors. Cash flow increasing and recovering from the 2020 pandemic. Final valuation for Nissan, great and reliable stock for future earnings, will need to hold since numbers are extremely volatile. Great and reliable stocks for future earnings will need to hold since the numbers are but need to sell if the spike going upwards again arrives. For Sony, business has grown significantly in the past and seems to be in a steady growth and would hold. Final evaluation for Nissan would sell. Business has been declining recently. Still very high in the numbers, but they haven't been doing so well. And my final evaluation for, I believe it was Nintendo. Sorry, I did not put that there. Not safe to invest right now. Games are not a priority in the pandemic and recession, but has been growing post-pandemic. Would buy. Thank you for hearing my evaluation, my financial analyst report for Japan, and I would hope that you have a great and wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.